Welcome back to another episode of the Retriever Handler podcast. As you can see, I have a co-host again.
Yep, I'm back.
That seat is warm now. I've had some inquiries of people wanting to come take that spot. I was like, well, if it happens again, maybe we can entertain this.
My
But
gosh, it's been one episode.
well,
It's been one ep.
who's Robin without Batman?
Oh, am I your Robin to your Batman?
I knew that was going to happen. Let's welcome on a new partner sponsor to the pod. Hunt Repellent. Oddly enough, the timing couldn't have been any better.
Yeah, we have a story time real quick before we.
Last Saturday, I was helping Bethany's dad. We were doing some pond work. Turned out great. We did a great job.
Did you see the video he sent us today?
It's
It's like coming out as flows like honey.
The amount of water we are now getting into this pond's fantastic.
Great.
Anyway, I had gloves on and something must have flew in, crawled in. I don't know how it got on me and bit me a total of 2 times in one hand and 2 times on the other hand. And I felt it at the time, but I was like, all right, I get bit all the time. No big problem. We went and had dinner. It was starting to get a little itchier, but again, no problem. That night, poof,
Like a balloon.
it
was like that round.
I was close to like, we need to go.
I'm pretty sure if I took a pin and just popped your hand,
I'd love for you to do that.
it would have just like popped.
I didn't sleep until 5 a.m. that night. And 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. is when I slept. I took Benadryl, didn't do anything. Turns out the Benadryl I was taking was 6 years expired.
It was 1 year expired, Jordan. And it still works when it's on your expired.
Didn't do anything for me. Cortisone cream, nothing. I was not getting any relief. I've never been that itchy in my life. So moving forward, anytime I'm outside by that pond, I'm lathering that on. Scent free, deed free, repels.
Deed free is key.
Repels ticks, which you're never too cool to, put bug spray on. Like, I don't care what people think of me. Especially what's going on now with ticks. And
you must have had that thought come past you because you're saying it. Like, oh, I wonder.
Yeah, I mean, he just sees people all the time, like, not putting stuff on. Like, oh, I'm not going to get a tick on me. Well, you're not going to get a tick on you until you get a tick on you. And now you can't eat red meat. Like, I'm not dealing with that.
How about this crazy stuff that's going on right now?
I think Bob had somebody on, Bob Owens. I think it was his podcast. And I was just like, my jaw dropped the entire time. I was just like, this guy is living like this. Talk about changing your lifestyle. It's sad that we have to deal with that.
Did you hear the conspiracy about the government is dumping ticks in Ohio?
Yeah. Listen, I'm all for I'm the type of guy that I definitely don't think the government, I don't want to get political on this, but I don't think the government has our best interests at heart all the time, right?
No matter who's president.
Yeah,
no matter who, they always have an agenda.
Yeah,
you tell me
they're
the
looking
president
out for number one.
Doesn't have an agenda, no matter who the president is, then you're bogus.
But I truly do not believe this conspiracy. Until somebody has video evidence of somebody doing this, I'm not going to believe it.
I know. I don't know what to believe either. It's just funny to me, like watching these like little lab people go out in their little suits with boxes and just like dumping ticks in a field somewhere. I don't know.
It is weird though that now this Lone Star tick, like now you're getting becoming allergic to red meat. Like,
yeah, along the same time that somebody just approved lab created meat. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say like the party that approved it because I don't want to misspeak. I don't know who it was, but somebody in the government or like that's related to the government approved meat that is lab grown. How can that be healthy for you? So like somebody, it was like, I don't know if it was on a news station or somewhere else, but they were like, make sure that you, and maybe this was all fake news that was just being pushed out by the internet. So, like, maybe take this with a grain of salt too. But I saw people were putting on disclaimers saying that, like, look at the labels that you're supposed to, or look at the labels that you need to get in the grocery store. You know what I mean? Like, look at if it says, um,
It'll say 100% lab grown instead of 100% beef.
oh, it'll say, 100, it will say certified lab something on it. I don't remember what it was, but they'll label it if you don't see that. Yeah. Anyway, just make sure with the meat that you're
Just
just
use
make
the
sure.
description on the bottom of the link in the description and buy yourself some of these.
Yeah, I don't know how we got to
So
the
that we don't even have to deal with it because that stuff
pie
works
hunt.
non-greasy. That's going to take off. I guarantee it. I'm just
Yeah,
leaving it in the
it
truck.
deep free and scent free are huge because
And you can put it on your gun and stuff. Like it's not.
I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about smelling all day, and I don't have to worry about deep it's deep free. I know that's not good for you, so
Uh,
it's good.
Also, Alpha Dog Nutrition. We just got a huge bulk order in from them. Um, what's going on here? Okay. I think we got what free range, balance, and resurgence. That's kind of our stack right now.
You
We have
got the
Shield,
resurgence?
yeah,
What do you
and that's like the electrolyte type stuff.
Yeah, we talked about that on today's episode.
We use Shield too for allergies, coats and stuff. So
Jeez.
use code RH15 at checkout for 15% off. I'll link the website in the description.
What else is new?
We still have t-shirts. We have a new order in for hats. Those are on order. So we got a sample. I loved it. And so keep an eye out for that.
What else is new?
Think that's everything, all like the housekeeping type stuff. We just wrapped up an interview with Dr. Matt Ryan, Duck Dog Vet on Instagram. This was a great episode. Learned a lot.
I feel like all of our listeners will benefit from today's conversation because I feel like everybody kind of knows, what not to do and what to do with your dog to keep him or her healthy. But to hear it from a vet and to hear that what you're doing is like right and good is another thing. So I think everybody will enjoy today's conversation.
Yeah, and again, just another great communicator. So I don't know what episode this is, 15 or 16. Chalk that up to 15 or 16 in a row of just awesome people that we've met and talked to. You guys will enjoy this one. So um,
Yep.
here's Dr. Matt Ryan. All right. We are welcome on by another special guest, Dr. Matthew Ryan, Duck Dog Vet on Instagram. I guess first question before we get into this, and I mean this in the most respectful way, should I refer to you as doctor?
What it depends on how mad at you are for these answers. So I'm good with whatever. I don't get into all that. I'm not more special than anybody else out there. So
Okay,
Nice.
cool. Well, let's jump right into our rapid fire questions. We like to do this just to get to know you better. Um,
yeah,
just get a
Fun
yeah.
little game before we start.
Go ahead.
Okay, what's your favorite movie of all time?
let's just show how big of a nerd I am. But it's the Harry Potter series by far.
Oh, I watch it every Christmas. I love Harry Potter. I don't know why I watch it every Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie, but it's a comfort show.
Look, anytime
Um,
that series is on, we're probably stopping there. I'm
yeah.
saying
Favorite TV show of all time?
Big Bang Theory for sure.
Nice. Favorite food?
Any type of Asian.
Mm. Favorite sports team?
Ooh, I'm gonna say Mississippi State just because that's where I went. But I really don't get caught up in the sports and everything too much.
Biggest fear?
Snakes by far. Zero question, but snakes. Won't mess
Uh,
with them.
Biggest pet peeve.
Um, people interrupting me.
Oh, good to know.
It is good to know on a podcast.
I'm glad we hashed that out early. If you weren't a vet, what would you be doing?
I would either probably still be in the Army or be an engineer with how my brain works. One of the two.
Okay.
Yep.
Would you rather have one perfect dog for 10 years or have free unlimited shells for the rest of your life?
Um, Good dog work is very much so exceeds the price of shell. So definitely the perfect dog for 10 years.
Okay, hypothetically, I'm giving you a free 7-day vacation anywhere you want. Where are you going?
What time of the year is it?
Your choice.
Oh man. Um, Anytime during the spring, send me to a hardwood ridge with a Mississippi turkey goblin. Outside of that, put me anywhere with an inshore fish I can put a fly in front of.
Nice.
Okay, it's 10 p.m. on a Friday and you're starving. What are you grabbing out of the pantry or fridge to eat?
All right, so y'all probably know these, but we're Costco members, and so those like dark chocolate sea salt caramel chews they sell at Costco, I will eat a whole one of those every night at 10 p.m. if I could.
Those are
Those are
good.
good.
Those are good.
Those are good.
Oh yeah.
Guilty pleasure.
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
Um,
So start off by telling us where you're from and like a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So the short story, 'cause there's a lot involved, is I was originally born in Mobile, Alabama. 3 years old, moved to Arkansas um, for my mom's military career. But we actually ended up moving every 3 or 4 years for my dad's job. Just how he worked his way up through kind of the financial management side of companies. Um, Ended up graduating from Batesville High School in 2008. Ended up graduating from Arkansas State in 2012. While I was at Arkansas State, I was part of both the Sigma Chi fraternity and the ROTC program there, which is where my involvement with the military came from. Plus, I grew up in a military family. Like I mentioned, mom, we moved to Arkansas originally for her career with the Army National Guard. She was a nurse for them for 38 years, I believe is what it was.
That's awesome.
Um, Graduated from Arkansas State in 2012, like I mentioned, went to Mississippi State for vet school from 2012 to 2016, and then took off with the Army for an originally planned 20-year kind of stint with them. But at my first duty station down in Dothan, Alabama, well, Fort Rucker, just right outside of Dothan, Alabama, ended up meeting my wife down there, and I had the essentially just that dream job offer that came about unexpectedly about halfway through my 4 year contract with them. And as we know, the Army doesn't have the most stability built into it, and so for family's sake and because the job offer, I got out earlier than planned for the stability in the job. And that was in 2020. Started here with Animal Clinic of Oxford in Oxford, Mississippi, July 14th of 2020, and have been rocking and rolling here ever since. Um, yeah,
Nice.
like that's the like real quick, kind of fast down and dirty.
How did you always know that you wanted to be a vet, or how did you decide on that specifically?
So that's actually kind of odd. When I was in high school, I had zero want or desire to even go to college. I wanted to get out of high school at 18, join the military. That way I could retire at 28 years old with full armor retirement and work a part-time job, running hunting or fishing guides or doing whatever I could find, pulling in two paychecks, just living the outdoorsman's dream from that kind of point forward. And so I really didn't apply myself too well in high school, but I was looking for a way to get off campus because we weren't the regular high school back in that kind of mid 2000s time frame where you could leave lunch off campus and eat. And so my junior year, I was just looking for a way to get off campus and eat lunch in any way, shape, or form I could. And that was by signing up to take some college classes at the local community college. And they were all medical based. The most boring thing I've ever sat through my entire life at that point in time. But we had one day in those classes where we are talking about different medical fields and careers and kind of just in medicine. But we had one day where we covered veterinary medicine. And like it was that one day in 11th grade where I was like, that's what I want to do.
That's
Let's rock and
awesome.
roll.
I love that. Oh my
And
god.
So
Turned around from there.
how hard was vet school for you
Yeah,
then?
it's pretty tough.
So, of course, I had to apply myself pretty heavy my last year of high school to be able to even qualify for a bunch of scholarships for undergrad and to qualify for the ROTC kind of program right out of the gate. But honestly, I felt like undergrad was much harder than vet school, just because undergrad, even though it's not a doctoral level program, it take a lot of classes you weren't really interested in.
Yeah, it
Plus, you're
makes
trying to figure out kind of how to be off on your own and not having mom and dad there all the time, and just kind of making that transition in life. So by the time you get to vet school, even though there's parts of it that were extremely tough, I'm not hiding that because you're typically most people because they're more interested in it, even though it's tough. It's overall it seems a little bit easier and easier to commit yourself to.
So when you're in vet school, obviously I don't know anything about vet school, but are you learning anatomies of several different types of animals, or do you have to like go in saying I want to specialize in these types of animals?
It
Mhm.
was class based.
So I'm gonna say it's both. You can go both ways. And so during your entire tenure there, you learn most animals. I mean, dogs, cats, pigs, horses, cows. I mean, some of the amphibians and reptiles and kind of pocket pets. But you just have to know that kind of stuff for your licensing exam. So it's not always for every species, like a 100% every little bitty nook and corner of them. But even though you have to know broad spectrum a lot about a lot, you can even go deeper and focus on small animals specifically or large animals specifically. And inside of that, you can focus on internal medicine or surgery or reproduction or even specialized areas inside of large and small animal individually. Kind of just like humans are or with their medicine, just a little different, I guess the way to say it.
So let's say I have a pet giraffe and it's sick. I have no idea what's going on. I bring it to you. Would you know what to do with the giraffe?
I mean, I'm sure I could Google something to get me by. Joking.
I love
Yeah,
that. That's a good answer. That's what I do
stuff
at
like
my
that.
job.
That's just
But
what I wanted. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
this is not a part where interrupting it bothers me. Um, but I mean, it's stuff like that to where you have to have some very general during your epidemiology top classes, they'll say just for example purposes, there was a in 1960 what epidemic, killed out 98% of the giraffes in Africa. That actually didn't happen. I've just made that up. But you'll have to know some big things like that for like giant and very specific, like one or two diseases. But you wouldn't have to know every single exotic animal out there and every single reptile out there. Kind of just the main ones that you'll see in general practice and then specialize from there.
Do you do a lot of exotic animals, or do you see mostly like pets? Like I'm not saying that exotic can't be pets, but you know what I
Mhm.
mean, like normal pets.
Yeah. And so we've got a couple people, I want to say a couple, like 4 or 5 that have some birds that will kind of manage. There's another clinic in here in Oxford that's really good at exotics. And so typically just for their everyday care, even though they're technically competitors, we know it's what's best for those exotic type pets. And so we kind of shift them and kind of direct them over to that clinic just because it's what they're good at.
Like a specialty. Yeah, I get that.
Tell us about the turkey that's hanging behind you.
Yeah.
Where'd you kill that?
Oh, that one is that's a fun one. So my grandpa passed away in 2001 and he left me oh man, what's the year model? Can't remember what year model it was specifically, but a sweet 16 gauge shotgun, of course. And we had always spent years and years and years talking about going up to Nebraska where he grew up at to shoot his first turkey because he'd never shot a turkey. Growing up there. Of course, with COVID, that put everything to a screeching halt. To be able to kind of do that once I was out of the army, and unfortunately, he just passed away. But that's a turkey that I shot with his shotgun. It took me 2 years to 2 years to shoot. So
That's awesome. That's a great
yeah,
story, and that's a really good mount too.
Yeah,
yeah, we
there's
got a guy here just down the road that's pretty good at a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah,
Also, thank you for your service before we get
yes,
anything
thank
oh,
else.
you for your service.
thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
So, you know, I followed you on Instagram for a while. Your content is phenomenal. Your pictures are like so clear, and you do a really, really good job at that. And I noticed that you've had some success with dogs in the hunt test game. So
Mhm.
can you tell us how many dogs you have and what their accomplishments are?
So the hunt test kind of stuff came as a way actually for me to get away from vet school when I needed a break. I'd always grown up around labs. Um, Not my grandfather that I referenced here, but my dad's father on that side of the family. They kind of grew up, well, I don't say kind of grew up, like generationally grew up in that Stuttgart, Umford, Arkansas area, and would farm a pretty significant swath of land right there against Crooked Creek for quite some time. And so, with a dad that grew up in that environment, I grew up always with labs. And so, naturally, I just had dogs and labs even when I was in vet school. So, it just kind of became a way during vet school. I think 20, well, I guess it was right before vet school, 2011, 2012 time frame, right before I started is when I really got interested in it. Um, I got started in it not with running and testing my own dogs though. Even though that's when I ran my first test was in vet school, just kind of take a break and train a little bit heavier. Got involved first as a bird boy for the Super Retriever Series when they still had their annual Crown Championship there in Mayflower every year. I bird boyed that for several years, and I thought it was just the coolest thing, but that I would never be able to train a dog like that. But when I got to vet school, when I wasn't studying how to fix them, kind of got caught up in studying how to train them.
Yeah.
And so that I started there with a dog named Lily. Um, of course, being in vet school and those times being tight on money, I put a season title on her, and I had an elderly gentleman from West Tennessee just one day randomly make me a pretty substantial financial offer to me, and I was just in a spot where I just needed to sell her just to kind of make vet school easier. Um, so I went from there. Then I got a yellow lab that I still have, Daisy. She has her HRCH. She has her a couple master hunter passes, if I remember right. But she had some I'm gonna say funny incidents at the time when running her last season test for that HR title, and it just caused some line issues for quite some time that I finally just gave up on trying to correct. Her when she was coming back from the blind on her second series for her HR title, she ran it clean, ran good, front footed both the marks. When she picked up the blind, the wing just so happened to fold over her eyes,
Hmm.
and she was strictly coming back by just sound. And so just time management. I mean, we always deal with that at test. A bird boy was loading wingers just like he'd done every single other dog. She heard that winger getting loaded, and she thought it was me, and she took it at a high rate of speed, a hard 90 degrees directly through the blind and broke the winger and knocked him out of his chair.
Whoa.
Lo and behold, she didn't drop the bird. She held it the whole time. But when she got back to the line, the judges were laughing so hard that she then got scared of the judges sitting behind her for the rest of her testing career. And
No
Oh,
so,
way.
yep. I mean, before that, she was great. Wouldn't even pay him any attention. After that, even when marks were being thrown, a mark would get thrown, top of the arc, you'd shoot it, she'd watch it land, and then she would turn around and look at a judge to make sure they weren't coming to get her.
oh,
And she'd look back around, she'd see the second mark. I mean, it was just repetitive every single time. And so
Wow.
after a couple of years of that and figured out I wasn't gonna be able to break that fear, I just kind of went on my way from her. Um, Ended up taking in one of my dad's dogs, put HRCH on him before selling him. Then I picked up a chocolate lab while I was at my time in Texas with my initial military training before ending up in Alabama. Um, Put an HRCH on her, and she was a phenomenal dog when we were in Alabama. But something mentally changed in her when we moved to Mississippi. She still worked great, trained great, tested great, hunted great, but at the house, she just became so anxious at the house that she was almost unbearable. And so I ended up selling her to a friend of mine in southeast Mississippi of all places, who absolutely wears the ducks out every single year. Um, I think on average, she was picking up right at like 800 birds in southeast Mississippi every year, right on that Alabama line with all that water, that kind of Tensas waterway that kind of comes down through there. Um, Talking to him, it seemed like getting in that kind of a more open country kind of area, just with the amount of property they have, that a lot of her anxiety and stuff subsided once she got down there. Um, but off that chocolate lab is where I've got my main gal Dahlia. She I trained her all myself. Had a little help from a buddy of mine, Tyler Hall. Just when work and life was a little busier, we were taking trips. Um, we trained real heavy. Me, Tyler Hall, Scott Schenkel, and Colby Cook, and a couple other guys around the area as well. Um, I put her HRCH on her, put her Master Hunter on her, and I really wanted to run her in Master Nationals. Um, and I just knew I didn't have the time to take, 14 plus days off of work to go and do that, to pre-train and go through all the meetings and the testing itself. And so um, a lot of conversation, a lot of thoughts and everything. Ended up sending her down to Adam Campbell, a good buddy of mine, who he took her for 3 or 4 months and carried her out to Master Nationals, where she picked up her plate that she's got on there. And I've currently got, I'm going to say, my youngest project dog, a dog named Frankie, that off of the same stud, a dog named Trent, another friend of mine, Dylan Mannering, from Andalusia, Alabama. He owns him. But Frankie came off the same stud as Dahlia did. And so I picked her up, and with big plans for her. And then me and my wife unexpectedly had our first child, and then very rapidly, unexpectedly, had our second child. And
Awesome.
life just got busy, and I had her right at a season title about a year ago, or season level, but just what didn't have time between work and life to remedy test. But I'd say she's a strong started dog as of right now, is the way I describe her, because she needs a really good tune up as of right now. So
Do you think being a vet helps you communicate with dogs? Like, can you talk to dogs like Dr. Doolittle?
that sure would make it a lot easier. I do really think, though, that having just a more in-depth medical knowledge of it, um, but not only from like medicine as most people would think of it as, when do you get your shots and how do you treat diarrhea or this broke leg, but also kind of from the behavioral aspect and kind of mental aspect of it, being able to know, like, when to use more positive reinforcement or when to use more pressure while training, and be able to read those dogs on things they're doing. I 100% will say that I think it has helped that, just from being able to as much time as I can spend around animals,
Yeah.
just kind of having to read it. So,
Yeah.
You mentioned that you sent your dog down to Adam Campbell.
Mhm.
What made you, like, how'd that relationship start, and what made you trust him to uh, you know, take her to the next level in the AKC world?
Yeah. And so I know a lot of great trainers on both the AKC and HRC side of things. I first met Adam multiple years ago because of a mutual friend of ours, Spence Halford, up there at Rolling Thunder. And then also some hunt test training stuff, and initially got in with our podcast and all that kind of deal. And just a really good relationship and friendship was formed, even though it wasn't with training, but because of dogs and because of the waterfowl world. Um, and really, I had a really tough time to figuring out where I wanted to send her between Adam and a guy here locally with Tyler Patterson, who's equally as successful in the hunt test game as Adam is. Really, one of the biggest reasons why I sent her down to Adam was so that I wasn't tempted to go over and interfere unintentionally with training, as Tyler was prepping for Master Nationals. But Tyler, he's just always been from the dog training side, has always been a big mentor. And I was going over there training, once or twice a month with him. And I just didn't want the possibility of me going over and running Frankie and continue to learn from him and ask questions. And Dahlia physically seeing me that often interfere with the relationship that she would need to build with the trainer that she was going with, being that she wasn't a long term kind of a dog for those individuals. I knew whoever trained her was only going to have her for, you know, 2 to 3, 4 months, depending on however it worked out when I was making the decision. And I knew that relationship needed to be as strong as possible without me being involved with it. And with
That's
her only being 30 minutes away, I didn't think that my personality, for one to see her because I love her to death, but also two, seeing how she was doing and going over to continue to learn from him, I didn't think I could keep myself out of that situation.
Yeah.
that's an interesting mindset. That's pretty cool. I
Mhm.
didn't think that's where you were going with that, but that was cool.
And
That was cool.
going back onto what you just said for like being able to read dogs,
Mhm.
uh, and knowing when to stop, knowing when to, you know, train them more, train them less. What is the most common injury that you see in like duck dogs specifically that do this sport? Or and maybe you don't see a lot of duck dogs that do the sport, but
Mhm.
what what's your opinion on that? Or what do you know about that?
So I'm going to split it off into young dog and old dog.
Okay.
Really, young dog is skin issues, including like hot spots, ear infections, all that kind of stuff. And there's multiple reasons that kind of go on that get into that. A lot of it can be, I'm gonna say management type issues when it comes down to like leaving a collar on accidentally or on purpose for too long, for like prongs on a collar causing hot spots. Um, and even though it's mild, you wouldn't think like a hot spot or an ear infection as being a big deal, but it definitely can play part in having them work better.
Yeah.
I've even seen a couple dogs whose anal glands got so bad that they you could tell they was affecting them at a tester in the woods or while training. And the second they got those squared away, it became a completely different dog. Um, when it comes to older dogs, the biggest injury, and really it's just due to chronic use, is arthritis. Whether if it's due to being overweight or, just with how, I mean, the good redneck way to say it is road hard and put up wet their joints are with how much we train and hunt and travel and just let them enjoy what they're bred to do. They just have a high prevalence of arthritis that I think there are some things we can do to manage it, but those are really the two most common things we see. Of course, we always, kind of naturally think about, these torn ACLs and broken legs or impaling injuries. Really, when you're looking at the big stuff like that, these torn ACLs are probably the most common thing we see, to be honest
Uh,
with you.
um, I guess in your opinion, what is the best course of preventing a dog from getting really bad arthritis in their old age? Like, what are some tips that you can
Mhm.
give?
So this will actually encompass the ACL issue as well. The number one thing you can do is keep them in a healthy weight range. By keeping them in a healthy weight range, which Purina's got some really good information out there. If you just Google Purina BCS, it'll bring up a chart that kind of describes it. You'll kind of hear vets and individuals talk about giving them a healthy hug that really looks for a waistline, looks for a tuck from the side, and then a very fine, thin layer of fat over those last two or three ribs. And if you start losing any of that, they're really starting to get a little bit too hefty.
Uh,
Um, and even for them, we may see it as, 4 to 5 pounds, like, oh, that's no big deal. But that comparably 4 to 5 pounds for them, depending on the size of that lab or that dog specifically, can for us or a guy like me that sits at 250, 260, could feel like a 20 to 25 pound weight loss.
Yeah.
So it can be pretty substantial for them when you're looking at comparative percentages on weight and everything.
yeah.
But also when you're looking at just from even from puppyhood, and I absolutely go every single one of my working dog clients when they bring in a new puppy, I do everything I can to fit in a conversation talking about helping that dog in and out of the truck, in and out of the box. Trying not to allow them to jump off of higher objects, whether if it's the bed or an elevated porch or a dog stand or something like that, as much as possible for that first year. That way we can let those main growth plates turn from that cartilaginous soft structure they are while they're growing into the kind of that hard ossified bony structure they are when they become good adults and everything. So,
Mhm.
um, am I kind of answering that for you so far?
No,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're doing a great job.
I was it's very helpful. I mean, to people in this industry specifically. What are your thoughts on like joint supplements? I think there's one DAS what is it
Consequent.
called?
We use Alpha Dog Nutrition, but
We do, but like we also for Brantley, like whenever he was little,
Hmm.
before we knew Alpha Dog, we used to use what?
Dasequin, yeah.
Dasequin,
Yeah.
and now we use Alpha Dog. So what are your thoughts on joint supplements? Does it help
Hmm.
a lot, or what do you think?
So I will answer this in a little bit different way to be more all inclusive, a little more educational. But it includes that answer. And so when we're looking at supplements, there's really not many supplements that I'm a big fan of. I know Alpha Dog's probably not going to like hearing me say that. But I think that as long as you're feeding a good quality food, no matter what food that is, me personally, I'm a huge ProPlan fan. So whether that's ProPlan or a Nook Sugar, but whatever it may be, as long as it's a good, high quality, they're really not needed.
Mhm.
Now we start getting down into like the old Roy, which is realistically what some people can afford. I'm not holding that against them by any means. I do think that some of these like multivitamin type supplements can be very beneficial. But supplements that I do think are very good are a joint supplement. Well, if it's the Dosquin, what I like to recommend are these Glycoflex products. And I'll go down here in just a second. There's another one called Cosequin that is made by the same company that makes the Dosequin. That are all really good, glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, all that kind of deal. The reason I like the Glycoflex, and it's what I personally use, is because it has a really good level of that green lip muscle in it. And I've had some really good personal just kind of use out of it. I will say I've never used the Alpha Dog joint supplement directly, so I can't speak directly for that product. But like I said, that's the joint supplements that I've used. Um, and so that's where, like I said, joint supplement I like to use. A good fish oil or omega-3 supplement I think is really beneficial. And then a probiotic is really beneficial as well. Keeping those a probiotic that is not only canine specific, but has the research and kind of proof and support behind it showing those live viable cultures can be really big for these dogs, especially when you're looking at, well, if it's major stress or minor stress, but keeping that bacteria good and that gut as healthy as we
Yeah.
can really help them just systemically. Their immune system, and just like in people, is pretty heavily tied into that gut. And so the healthier the gut is, the healthier the immune system is. And so the better they handle, exposure to, any kind of little bug at a hunt test or the stress of, the 18-hour drive in the box to go hunt up in Canada, depending on where you're living at. Or, for us, it's, 20 plus hour drive to get up there. I think depending on where you're going, most like 27, 28 hours for most guys from down here. So even though they're just riding a box, they can still be pretty stressful on some of these dogs, and they can have some gut issues and health issues flare up just because of it. And so
Yeah.
those are the three main things I like to recommend.
Yeah. I noticed that like dogs in general, like they're so, and I don't know why this is, but they're so, every time a dog is stressed out, I feel like it's immediate gut issues. Like no matter
Mhm.
what, I see it in my parents' dogs, especially, and our dogs too, some of the time. But I notice probiotic helps our dogs a lot with that kind of stuff. So I'm
Yep.
glad that you say that because I notice it. So that helps. That helps me. But
Oh
if
yeah.
you ever want to jump on board with Alpha Dog Nutrition, use code RH15 and we can get you
Uh-huh.
15% off your next order.
Perfect.
Jordan's always trying to.
I'm a salesman, so it never leaves.
Yeah.
Um, but what
Now I
about
will
like,
say before
go
we leave the
ahead.
topic, I will throw this in there, and it's not really a daily supplement that I use. Um, but depending if we're ever in very hard, heavy training. Like there's several times that I was really stretching these dogs out. Running some 400 to 450 open level blinds, running some giant pattern blinds, working on teamwork and some concepts at a distance. Element Nutrition has some post exercise supplements I'll use, and also a kind of pre hydration supplement I'll use. Um, I really think a lot of it. when the benefit from that isn't the like electrolytes that it's replenishing or anything like that. I think really between the two of them, it's just looking at hydration management. Is what really for me was getting into to make sure these dogs weren't getting dehydrated as best I could. Um, there's another product that's definitely cheaper than the Element products that I use for the same thing. Because the way I describe it in kind of my clinical work is I have my working dog set of patients and my house pet set of patients. And just because it's a little cheaper for my house pet set of patients, Kevin out there with the Fervor pet products, they've done a lot of research on their bone broth hydration type stuff. And I tend to, it just helps dogs, encourage dogs just to drink more water in these hotter times of the month. And so I'll recommend a lot of their products as well for these hot months.
That was literally my next question is,
Oh,
Alpha Dog has, it's a product called Resurgence, and it's
uh-huh.
just for that reason, to replenish those, like, electrolytes and, promote hydration after, long, strenuous training activity. So,
Yeah.
uh, I'm glad to know that kind of, use that. So, I was a little bit hesitant. I was like, "Well, I don't know how much this is gonna affect," but it's good to know that,
Yeah.
you're for that. Go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
does it so I guess what does it do? How is it? Because our dogs love water. Like we have to
Mhm.
like sometimes take the water away because they just go too hard after their training. We try to like withhold a little bit because like we don't want them to throw up right after. So does this supplement like just help them retain the water a little bit better? Is that essentially what it does?
That is the thought process when you're reading the research on elements, hydration, kind of pre-hydrate product. That's the thought process. They kind of brought the aspect of what cyclists in the human world do with glycerin to kind of force water. It's glycerin and glycerol. I'd have to remind myself. Anyways, they use this product to force water into the cells so that as they're working, they're not getting dehydrated quite as fast.
Okay.
Um, Once again, I think that the kind of the other products, it's not really that there's that much electrolyte being replenished like we think about in kind of human sports. I think it's more so for a lot of these dogs, just adding a little bit of that, that flavoring to the water just encourages them to drink
Yeah.
where they naturally in other one kind of situations wouldn't want to drink because of just being distracted because other dogs are getting to work or whatever the situation may be.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Um, Kind of switching gears a little bit. We live in Pittsburgh, so we
Mhm.
experience hot winters and we experience hot summers, hot summers and cold
Get
winters.
what we were saying.
Yep.
So what would be your best advice for helping a dog avoid overheating in the summer and helping
Mhm.
a dog when, like, maybe first signs of hypothermia may set in the winter?
Yep. And so the biggest thing you can do for both of those that actually helps with it is acclimation. Allow these dogs to acclimate to that weather. I mean, for us, what I do is during the day, as long as it's not going to be 180 degrees outside and 90% humidity down here in Mississippi, I leave them in our outdoor kennel during the day with a fan on them, as long as it's going to be safe for them. But allow them to be exposed to that heat. Sometimes it's just the morning time. I come home at lunch and bring them inside. Put them in the cool air. If it's getting too hot there in the afternoons, and vice versa when it's starting to cool off, is I allow them to be out there in that colder weather, allowing for their bodies to acclimate. People, we do it every year. We don't realize it, but in May or June when it hits 80 degrees for the first time, we think it's the world's on fire and we can't go another step with how hot it is. But September hits 80 degrees, and we think it's the best weather in the world because our body's kind of acclimated to that temperature kind of change for the that time of the year. Um, Outside of that, as far as hot weather goes, of course, just like everybody says, early in the morning, late at night, training times are really short. We're really looking for when with the overheating and kind of hyperthermic type issues and these heat stroke type issues. Where I say to call it is when these dogs start getting a really thick, sticky, tacky kind of saliva that they're producing. They'll become hyperproductive of that kind of saliva, and or they will get just a really big kind of shovel tongue, just trying to cool better because they don't sweat like we do. They cool off by panting primarily, and there's some sweating glands here and there, but not enough to cool off like humans do. And so they get that shovel tongue just so they can increase that surface area to dissipate heat faster while they're panting. And so when one of those two things or both of those things are noted, it's time to stop training. Um, one thing I'll do, and I'll admit that I don't do it every time because I may not remember to grab it, or I would have forgotten to take it out of the truck from the previous training and it's just too hot. But when in the summer, sometimes I will actually carry a little squirt bottle of water for if their mouth is full of that just thick, sticky saliva. I'll spray it out real fast just so I can get rid of that. So once it opens up more capillaries and access to blood vessels for that heat to dissipate a little bit better.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, I heard some stuff going around about taking a big syringe full of water and shooting it up their rectum. I do not recommend that at all.
Oh my god.
Uh,
I
yeah,
did not hear that.
um, I heard it in a couple hunt tests, and so I always like to throw that in there. I don't recommend it. I think it could cause too much shock to the body, even if it's just room temperature water. When putting it in there directly onto that colonic tissue, I'm just not a fan of.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other side of it is, you got to get them out of there. Get them, and it doesn't have to be like inside in a cooler, a cooler full of ice water, which I don't like to do. A lot of times it's just getting them over to a shady spot with a fan or into the front seat of the truck with the air blowing on them, just trying to allow them to cool off. Um, just at a slow kind of monitored pace. One thing I love to do if the training scenario allows for if the group is big enough or to hunt test is if we can get, those cheap little $5 plastic kiddie pools from Dollar General or Walmart, wherever you can find them. Get one of those, fill it up full, couple inches of water, and just throw a block of ice in there. Grab some ice from the gas station. Don't break it up. Leave it frozen in one big chunk. That way, it kind of keeps that water a little bit cooler. Um, Now, I will say I don't like dunking a dog in ice water. If they want to go stand in it or lay down in a very shallow thing of ice water, I'm fine with that. Because we don't want to overcool them because that can cause some situation and kind of issues as well. Um, Okay, that's kind of a really rough kind of, I'm going to say shallow dive into kind of the overheating stuff. The one warning I will say is if you ever think your dog has overheated a little bit, I always encourage people to go and have some blood work run within a day or two just to be safe. Um, if a dog has overheated, and some of these dogs can overheat more than we give them credit for, even though they recover, kind of what tends to cause some unwanted outcomes is some unknown kind of organ damage, primarily with the liver or the kidneys. That can put us in a pretty bad situation if we don't get under control pretty quick.
Yeah.
Typically, when we get to that stage, that's when the dogs they refuse to work. They're laying down looking for shade, saying, "No, I'm not going to go." They get more worried about panting than drinking water when you do present it to them. Um, Typically that's where that's going to happen. It's not just going to be when they first get that shovel tongue or first have that thick saliva. But if you ever get to the point where they're hot enough where you're concerned about it, I always encourage people to, just get some blood work run because blood work, even though, it may be, 150, $200, it can be a big help on knowing that we're good or knowing if we need to intervene with treatments and everything.
I've heard people say that they will, put alcohol on the pads of their dog's feet when they think that they're overheating. Have you heard that before? And is that like a good thing to do?
Yep, alcohol's good. You can not only put it kind of on the feet and between the pads with everything, you also put it on the ears. Of course, I wouldn't pour it down in the ear canal, but just anywhere that has low fur or low hair. When you think about it, because some dogs you put it on their belly if their stomachs and their abdomens really don't have much hair on them. What that alcohol does is it evaporates really rapidly, and so by putting it in those areas, that alcohol, especially if it's kind of chilled or cooled alcohol, will collect that heat off of those areas and dry and dissipate, and kind of get rid of it. Now that it's not going to do major things for you. Don't it definitely getting some kind of moving air or in the shade or in like the front seat of a truck is going to cool them off much better. But if you have alcohol and want to use it, it's definitely beneficial to use it in that manner.
Okay, good to know. So
Yep.
along those lines, what would be like 3 to 5 items that every dog handler should carry with them in like a first aid kit for situations like this?
Yep. And so, kind of what I encourage everybody to carry at a minimum is I'm going to say some kind of, I'm going to say wound care wraps. And I'll say that in that way. That would include some gauze, some kind of gauze bandage, as well as some vet wrap, um, just so we can get stuff covered if we need to. The warning with the vet wrap is if you're going to wrap it around a spot on your dog, make sure to stretch it really good first before you do that. Because if you don't stretch it, if you put it on there too tight, it can on their leg, it can block blood flow and cause some other issues. Um, and so that's just kind of the additional kind of deal with the vet wrap. Always encourage individuals to carry a thermometer. That way we can, and always somewhere on the thermometer write the word dog. That way you don't accidentally put a rectal thermometer in you or a child's mouth at any point in time. I say that because I have seen it done.
Oh
Uh,
my
yeah,
gosh. No.
Oh
yeah.
god.
I had a buddy's house and they had a sick kid and they just grabbed the first thermometer.
Uh,
They used it and then afterwards they noticed what had happened.
Oh
Uh,
oh
my
god.
yep,
gosh.
just
I
right in
couldn't
the
imagine.
Sharpie, just write dog on it. That way, if you think they're overheating, you can always get a quick rectal temp. If they're getting too cold, you can get a rectal temp as well, kind of see what things are like. Um, I always like some kind of ear care products, whether if it's the over the counter Zymox or a good kind of over the counter medicated ear flush. I can't remember the recipe for it. I'm pretty sure it's called the like blue magic or blue lotion ear cleaner. There's a certain recipe for it. I actually saw it. Somebody sharing it online the other day. I'd have to go back and I can send it to y'all if I can find it. What else? I'm going to say if you can convince your veterinarian to get you some general antibiotics to get you set up on the road with, I'm a fan of that. There are some kind of loopholes and tricks with that because to be able to prescribe antibiotics, there are some um, federally required kind of um, let's say physical exams have to happen at minimum every year, and some vets aren't big fans of just giving out antibiotics just in case, which I get. I'm never going to hold against them. Um, but if I've got a client that I trust and I don't think they'll inappropriately use them, I'll give them some general antibiotics. Because I know a lot of places that we end up hunting, it's going to be 5 hours to the nearest emergency clinic, or
Exactly.
they don't have
Yeah.
an emergency clinic and they can't get anywhere. Especially some of these upland guys like out west. I mean, I got a guy that goes out and just literally lives out west every year, and he says there's a spot that the closest vet clinic is a 6 hour drive for him to get to,
Oh my
and he
gosh.
knows that because he's had a situation out there before. And so for those kind of guys, I like them if vets are able to just to have a good conversation about what their needs may be and trusting them on what they are comfortable kind of sending with you.
Yeah. Um, Question on like hypothermia. So like what
Mhm.
are some like signs that your dog's getting too cold? Because sometimes when we go hunting, it'll be cold. I know our dogs like we set them out on place and like try to get them acclimated at home and stuff
Mhm.
before we go. But sometimes we go in pretty cold temperatures and they're shaking because they're excited, but then I'm half
Yep.
worried in my mind that they're too cold. So I'm like, no, they're just excited, like calm down. So what are some other signs other than like physically shaking that they could point to hypothermia?
Yeah. And so really typically one of the first signs you'll see is that they'll get a little sluggish or reluctant to want to go.
Yeah.
Either because they're telling you, hey, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm getting too tired and too run down. Or their body is, and when they get because what happens when they're shivering like that is they use up a lot of glucose really rapidly with their body shivering, trying to produce heat. Um, and if they're getting hypoglycemic, which is typically what you see as one of the primary issues with hypothermia, mentally they're just sluggish and they're not processing everything as quick as we expect them to. Um, and so, really, if you ever see a dog that is Trent is shaking and doesn't want to work, and you have to kind of encourage them to get into the water, that's where I tell everybody, like, hey, either, just get them back to camp, get them back to the truck. If you've got a heated blind, get them back towards that heater, like get them warm. Um, I always keep, of course, I don't do it during the summer, but during the winter while we're running, especially because like, I like hunting private. I'll always go if I get an invite, but growing up in Arkansas and moving around the state like I did, I'm ate up with the public land aspect of it. Um, and I mean, and there's times where we'll have a 45 minute to an hour long boat ride up or down river. And so if you've got a situation there, it's not a quick way in, quick way out. And so I always like to keep one of those heat blankets, those big, loud silver heat blankets, in the boat just to wrap a dog up in. Or I've got an old, like when I say old, like 20, 25 years old, little Columbia, um, coat that I'll throw on the boat if it's super cold. Just to be able to say, yeah, I can either wrap them in that or keep them off the bottom of that metal boat while we're running and moving.
Okay.
But really with hypothermia, it's really all about early intervention. If you start seeing issues, it's the same kind of thought process on recommendations for if you ever think your dog got hypothermic, just out of pure safety, recommend some blood work because you can see organ failure pretty quick. I've had multiple friends over the last 5 years who have lost dogs because of um, during the hypothermic and overheating issues, and with the hypothermia, where 3 to 5 days after the event, the dog starts going downhill because it can be delayed. So that's where that recommendation kind of comes in at.
Got it.
Of course, with that, but there's also some really good preventative stuff we can do as well. We talked acclimation for the hypothermia. But also you can look at just keeping some treats on you. I know there's several companies out there that have these kind of hunting dog specific treats that you can keep in your blind bag. I'm very simple and I'm very redneck with it. If it's going to be super cold, I just take a Ziploc bag of their food. And it doesn't have to be, a full 3 cups or anything, but I'll grab a couple handfuls, throw it in the Ziploc bag and throw it in my blind bag for them, just so I can slowly feed it to them during the hunt if I know it's going to be that cold. Um, I will give them, if it's going to be real cold, I'll give them a very small feeding the morning before the hunt. With Dahlia, she gets right at 3 to 3.5 cups of food a day. So I may give her 1 cup of food. So nothing too big, nothing too substantial, but just so she can have a little bit of calorie boost and a little bit of glucose boost before the hunt. And that's if it's, super cold. Yeah, I'm a big once a day feeding guy, and I'll get to that here in a second. But when looking at it, um, really, what I keep on hand is whatever snacks I'm chewing on. Like if I think she's getting cold, I'll give her a bite of my honey bun or a bite of my Snickers bar.
Yeah.
Because we always hear that some of the stuff can be toxic, which it can. I'm not taking that away from it,
Yeah.
but for in a situation like that, a bite of milk chocolate is not going to cause huge issues with most 50-pound labs.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Dark chocolate and especially cocoa powder can be a much different story. But milk chocolate, if that's what you have on hand to get them some sugar, give it to them. Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm pretty basic and redneck when it comes to the kind of normal temps on everything.
Yeah.
So
And I guess that's just as like you've seen, like humans when like just you need your blood sugar to kind of get up there, you take a bite of a Snickers bar, same exact the same
hmm
exact thing.
What
yeah.
as keeping on like the hypothermia topic, do you believe that dog vests um, are a good tool for people to utilize? Because I feel like some people are either totally for them or totally against them. There's like really no in between.
So I actually sit on the fence with that one.
Okay, well, there you go.
And because it's very circumstantial and very dog specific. I mean, I've got 2 dogs that are a great example. Dahlia, I run one on her almost all year long because she just doesn't handle cold water well. But if I put a vest on her, she's fine. She's great. She can handle, even down to some of the coldest of colds, which I've got, depending on where we're hunting at, I've got some limits that I'll hunt her in. But I got a dog, that young dog, Frankie, when I've taken her to hunt, I mean, there's some mornings where it was 10, 15 degrees, and I had to take a vest off of her because she was starting to pant and get too hot. Um, And so, like I said, a lot of it can be very dog dependent. But to me, it's also very circumstantially dependent. If I'm in a spot where it's super cold and we busted some ice and it's all running water, I'm probably going to run a vest on them just so I can keep that chest from beating against, ice floaters that are in there, beating against unknown sticks and stobs that are underwater. If fit properly, which is a big part of vests, so they got to be fit properly. They are really, really, really good at retaining heat. Um, but if fit inappropriately, I mean, they can act as a good protective barrier, but they don't do any good for our kind of heat retention. Also, if it fit inappropriately, they can lead to some of our skin issues as far as like hot spots and pressure sores, just because they're wearing it appropriately on like armpits and stuff like that.
Mhm.
The other side of it, though, is that there's times down here last couple of years where we have these huge deep freezes and everything but the main river channels themselves are frozen, and a lot of those rivers that people are pushed to are lined with buckbrush and thick, kind of vegetation on both sides of the river. In that situation, if a dog can handle it, I'm not going to run a vest on them. Strictly because I don't want a bird to fall on the other side of the river and that dog break unexpectedly and get to try to crawl in there to get that bird and get stuck with something going through the arm of that vest and literally be in a situation where I can't get to it because it's a moving river in the circumstances. Um, and that's where I just always encourage people to really, when you're taking dogs, is not really say, hey, at this temperature, we have to cut it off and not hunt them. Because a lot of it is knowing not only what the dog can take. Because, like I said, Frankie was 15ish degrees and was overheating, panting in her vest. So she could take a lot more, but also thinking about the circumstances and the scenarios of where and how you're going to be hunting them, just being safe.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. And so a lot of common sense in with that question, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But
Yeah.
I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of them.
Okay.
Um, my two favorite vests that I have, because I get that question a lot, is I've got like a 15-year-old Avery Boaters parka dog vest, the old 5 millimeters that had the flotation down the side,
Yep.
uh, zipper with some Velcro on the back, and it's really easy to custom fit two dogs to keep them from rubbing on in their armpits, the axillary areas. I love it. Plus, it's the old school mossy oak breakup that blends into absolutely everything. I wish more people would use that camouflage pattern. Last year, I purchased one and got one of the gunner vest, and that's been of the recent ones I've tried. That's been my most favorite one.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's some changes that need to happen on it. Just being completely honest with y'all, as far as like being able to easily get it on and off, because that was a little difficult sometimes. But
Horrible.
overall, I really liked it.
Yeah. Uh, You're exactly right. We got the gunner vest last year too. And we actually had Holloway on here in a prior episode, and he said
Mhm.
that the newer updated version is actually going to have a different angle on those clips because those are a giant pain to
Yeah.
get, especially off.
I
It's
can't
like
Yeah,
do it. I cannot do it
yeah,
for the life of me. I'm like, and the dog is like, just wants to go and sleep upstairs. And I'm like, I
yeah.
can't get it off.
yeah. So I think they're working on a new design with that, which is
Cool.
good.
I would like it otherwise.
Yeah,
It's
other than
pretty
that, it's a
best.
fantastic vest. The
Yeah.
customization of it and being able to fit your dog, it's great.
Mhm.
It has like that nice chest pad for the reasons you were talking,
Yeah.
sticks or something underneath the water. So yeah, I'm
W
super happy with it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people, they always, if I'm talking to individuals like, "Well, it's so expensive." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna hide that."
Yeah.
But it's such a versatile vest that you can carry it from dog to dog as long as you don't throw it in the fire pit.
Right.
With a lot of these other vests that are $50, $60, they do save money. There are some decent ones out there, but the second you start cutting the neoprene or whatever material it is and refitting it to this dog you're running now, you have to get another one in the future for the next dog, or if you got a second dog. And so
Yep.
it
Yeah.
all works out and evens out in the long run somehow, I think.
With everything that they make, it's an investment, right? It's not
Yep.
for, you're looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. I mean, we have three gunner kennels, and then I
Hmm.
probably won't ever need to buy another one, right? I mean,
No. If you need to, you've done something wrong.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see why people think everything's so expensive, but if you look at the lifetime of the product and how long you have it,
Mhm.
is it really that expensive? No, not really. So,
Yeah.
Um, I have as we start to wrap up our questions here, why do you only feed once a day? And do you think that every dog could be fed once a day, or do you think it's highly dependent on the dog?
There is some circumstances where twice a day is definitely best. For my normal house pet subset of dogs, I really don't think it matters. I can think it depends more so on, does that animal kind of have some GI issues, such as like acid reflux type stuff. Feeding twice a day can definitely help with acid reflux type of situations. The reason I feed once a day is when it gets into looking at the research of like food and nutritional and caloric utilization for working dogs specifically. There's really good research that shows if you feed as close to 12 hours before their main energy expenditure, that they utilize that food best. Um, if we're leaving the the boat launch at 4 a.m., I'm not going to feed at 4 p.m. because I'm probably going to be taking a nap at that point in time. I'm not going to lie, but I just feed them the evening before with that. Now, like I mentioned, though, that doesn't mean that it has to be 100% all in the evenings. It just needs to be when the vast majority of their calories and nutrition's into it. Like I mentioned, with those cold days, I'm going to give her part of the cold or really hard working days too, because there's some days like when we scout and we find some birds, I'm like, all right, we're about to beat the brakes off of them. Those days, she's going to get a little bit extra as well, just in case.
Mhm.
But um, like I said, the vast majority of calories it shows around that, theoretically around that 12 hours before the main calorie expenditure, they utilize it best. The big thing is if you do decide to feed some before a hunt and it ends up being a really slow hunt and they don't have much calorie burn, just remember that while you're feeding them later on in the day. And so you don't overfeed them on a consistent basis and with everything, end up with an overweight dog. So,
yeah.
because just like in people, it's all about calories in versus calories out. And if, the small little Snicker, going back to the Snickers bar stuff, the little minis, one of those a day probably isn't going to hurt you. But if you eat one of those every single day or every single time you walk past them, then they can really build up. It's the little things that really start building up that gets most dogs, to be honest.
What about feeding right before a hunt test?
So I usually don't feed before a test, typically because it's going to be hot. And so I don't want that food sitting in their stomach when it's hot and they're in their boxes waiting, no matter if I got a fan on them or not. I also don't want to risk them needing to use the bathroom in a test. Just because even if I air them really good beforehand, because anytime they stop to urinate or defecate while they're testing, you're just burning seconds on memory. You're risking them wanting to spit a bird out. And so I like to micromanage that kind of stuff, and I like to set them up for success as best as possible. So I just don't feed beforehand.
Now, let's say to the people that feed twice a day. So let's say they
Mhm.
feed in the morning. They go to work, they come home. Now, what's like the grace period with? Okay, do I train, come home, wait, and then feed, or do I feed, wait, and then go train? Like, what would be like the hours either way, if that makes sense?
So if you're training after you feed, I would at least give them a couple hours, like 2, 3, 4 hours to really let that food digest and start moving out of that stomach. If you're feeding after you train, what I encourage everybody to do is allow that dog just to settle and cool down.
Mhm.
I don't want to give that food while they're still panting really heavy. I want them to be settled and not taking in much air, and be very calm before I feed. So
Okay.
typically, I mean, depending on where you're training, that could be in the scenarios and the weather of the day, that can be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half or two if it's hot outside and they just can't cool down until you get them home into some cool air.
Yeah.
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 Sweet.
And that's, the realistic side of it, because you're not talking about a lot of this stuff, we talk in idealistics. It's not always the realistic. And so if you are forced to feed while they're not, haven't quite calmed down or cooled down yet, just keep an eye on them afterwards. And if they start, kind of acting weird, just get them looked at.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, What's the best advice you could give to extend a hunting dog's career?
This goes back to repeating something I said earlier, and that is to keep them in a healthy weight range, and to help them on and off stuff as much as you can, even not just that first year of life, but throughout their entire working career. Part of my training when I'm doing basic obedience is actually how you come out of that gunner in the bed of the truck.
Yep.
I don't want to open the door and a dog dart out and come and, jump 10 feet off the back of the truck, the tailgate. I want to open the door. I want that dog to stay there. I want that dog to, well, if they come out like a racehorse, or they ease out and kind of walk to the tailgate, I want them to know their next stop is the tailgate, and they're going to sit at that tailgate, and then I'm going to help them down. That is where I train my expectation for obedience, because I want to be able to, as often as possible, help that dog off that tailgate. Um, I also train dogs to use. I found actually really, really, really good at the time ramp at Target of all places, and so I train them to use a ramp, just so they can. If I have full hands, that ramp is set up that they know to go down the ramp or up the ramp if possible.
Yep.
With that said, if I'm holding my daughter and I can't unload the dogs, it's a situation where I don't need to set her down or whatever. Like, that time I'm going to have them jump off. I know that realistically you can't do it 100% of the time, but the way in my head it works out is that every single time I help them off the tailgate, or, you know, off the whatever the fill in the blank high object they're on, could potentially be one more retrieve they can make in their older age.
Mhm.
That's great advice. And yeah, we use a dog ramp every single time we go training. And
Mhm.
I've heard that before, like, every time that could be one more retrieve. And, you think about it, that adds up, I mean,
Yes.
all the times our dogs have been up and down that ramp. I mean, if that gives us, the only problem is we don't have any damn birds or ducks or geese here. So I
That's
don't know if that's actually, I think we're banking too many at that point, but
We're very jealous of you guys
yeah.
down there.
I don't
So
look. I don't know if you want to be jealous or not. It's gotten like I said. It's all you always hear: flooded corn this and
yeah.
non-residents that, no water this. I mean, the realistic side of it is just not getting cold, and birds aren't coming south.
Yeah.
Uh, and so until we see some weather patterns change and the trending towards colder winters, and this, because when I was growing up, the snow and ice would start in November, and we're lucky to get it by the end of January
I
now.
know. Yeah. That's
Yeah, that's crazy. And yeah, the
we
flooded corn was a huge debate this past winter. That was a big one. We're thinking about next year. I don't know if Bethany's aware of this. We're thinking about making a trip down to Arkansas for a guided.
Uh-huh.
well, we are, I guess.
Um, do you have any recommendations?
I'll text them to y'all. That
Okay.
way, yeah, we won't lose them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you I know I see on your Instagram you do like turkey hunt a lot. Do you
Mhm.
turkey hunt more than you duck hunt and goose hunt, or do you do both equally?
100%.
Yeah.
So the way I describe it is that I've been extremely blessed for where I grew up at. Um, everybody's always got their own heyday, but I really like the most recent heyday I got to experience to the fullest. Like I tell everybody that I don't know how I got into vet school because of how much I duck hunted in my junior year of undergrad. Um,
Aw.
and it's because we were shooting that many birds. I was willing to risk not getting into school. I think I hunted. It was like, I think it was 52 out of 60 days. And of those 52 days, we shot a 10-man limit. I think it was like 41 or 40, 39, somewhere around there. Before 9 o'clock of those days,
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
gosh.
like
That's
we got
perfect.
to experience it.
Yeah.
And so now I enjoy it. But I go for more for the camaraderie than the shooting the same amount of birds in the same split as we did in one hunt in the past sometimes.
Yeah.
Plus life is just what it is. And the first time I ever heard a turkey gobble at me with his soul at 15 yards, like it's something flipped inside of me.
Oh yeah.
Um, Plus, it's just once again just being blessed. It's real easy with my work schedule and where we live at for me to run out because I mean within 30 minutes I can. I mean it. I got my picking of public lands that I want to get on here, and so I can run out before work, either scout birds for the next morning or go on a quick hunt if I know where some birds are sitting at. Get in. I can probably 80 to 85% of the turkeys I've shot since moving back to Mississippi after the Army have shot. I've been shot before work during the weekdays. But I'm back at the office by 9 o'clock when we start seeing patients. So it also just, not only was I'm going to say thunderstruck with when the first ever had one gobble like that, but with the current life schedule, it just fits better where I can just spend some more time with family as well as still enjoy something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So in Mississippi, what is the type of turkeys that are there?
So we've got Eastern wild turkeys, what we got down here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
How many? So in Nebraska, what was that one? Same thing.
Depending on where you're at, they've got. I think there's parts of the states that have Easterns, but mainly it's Rios.
Okay.
The northwest corner, there's some Merriams, and of course, their ranges overlap, and there's some hybrids spread around through all of it, and all that kind of stuff. So
Do you have the Grand Slam?
I do not. I do not.
No.
I'm
Okay.
slowly working on it. Me and a buddy of mine, Watson Thomas, we went out to Washington this year. We both were able to shoot Merriams out there, and so I was able to knock that one off the list this year. But I just enjoy going.
Yeah.
I want to be able to see other areas, other subspecies, and different environments that they kind of live in. But I don't care where they're at. I just enjoy chasing them, even
Yeah.
if it's the same ridge that I've already shot 20 on before. I love it just because of how it is and that
Yeah.
interaction. And it's just, one of the reasons I like it so much is because it's, to me, it's very similar to duck hunting. And a duck doesn't gobble back at you and kind of strut like a turkey does, but it's that interaction between the hunter and the animal itself, and that communication between the two, and truly like figuring out how to read and kind of talk back and forth between them.
Yeah. Totally
I
agree
really
with
like
you.
it.
Anytime somebody kills a turkey, to me, that's extremely impressive just because of everything that goes into it, right? I mean, you have to be super, super still. They got to come into range. You got to kill them too. And people were like, "Oh, how'd you miss a turkey?" Well, it's not as easy as you think, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's all encompassing. It is a difficult hunt,
Yeah.
but it is a blast. It is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Um, Being afraid of snakes, though, would probably be tough for you to kill an Osceola with how many snakes are around that area, right?
So I kind of have a ignore it and I just don't think about it mentality when it comes to that.
Yes, that's good.
Um, and I make sure I wear gaiters and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
I will say I had I'm gonna say near death experience this year while I was scouting before season, meaning that I got that scared when it happened. So I went out and I was just listening for birds, trying to pin some stuff. So I drew a tag that was kind of hard to get. So my wife, even though we had she was getting ready to have our new little boy, and we had at that point in time 13-month-old. She was really letting me get out and scout and try to get prepped for this hunt. I sat down against the pine tree and I was listening. And it's not uncommon these pine thickets to sit down and a mouse run out from underneath you or anything like that. So I felt something move underneath me. I was like, oh, it's just another mouse. And I looked down, and there's a big rat snake crawling out from between my legs, and
Oh
I
God.
about had a heart attack.
Yeah, oh man.
Yeah, that's all.
That's
I won't tell you the words I said or the actions I
yeah.
took, but
I
I
could not.
about had a heart attack.
I could not imagine.
I'm right there with you. I hate snakes.
I
Hate
hate
them.
snakes too.
I hate them. To me, they're just
So if somebody brought a snake into your clinic, you'd be like, "No way, I'm not
That
doing
was
that."
probably the worst. Honestly, just being very open. Because I'm open with everybody really. Because if you're talking to me, you're going to get the real me.
yeah,
Most of the time. By complete accident, in reactivity, the worst thing I've ever said to somebody was when they asked about bringing a snake in without even thinking. Like, I mean, I'm being completely honest. They asked me if I treat snakes, and I said the only thing I treat a snake with is euthazol. I'm sorry. Like, and the second I said it, like I was putting foot in mouth, and I was apologizing, but it was just pure reactivity. I
You can't
dislike
help
that
it.
much.
Tell him to go
Dislike
down
them
the
that much.
street. Tell him to go down the street to the exotic place, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I couldn't
And
imagine.
I know they have their place, and like if I know they're there, I'm completely fine with them. Like I can keep checks on them, even no matter what kind of snake it is.
Yeah.
Like as y'all have seen from Instagram, like one thing I really love is photography. It's some of
Yeah.
the favorite pictures I've ever taken are us snakes. But I knew they were there. I knew I could control the situation. But it's when I'm surprised by one within close proximity, or someone brings one up to me,
Yeah.
it's not gonna end well.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. When you're surprised by them, that's when it's, and just the way they slither, right? They don't have to do that. Just like stand up like a normal animal and just introduce yourself.
Get on
Yeah,
your
grow
feet
legs and
talk
actually
to
do it
like
right.
Yeah. But but hey, that's all we had for you. This has been awesome.
This has been great.
We learned a ton.
Yeah, I'm sure our audience really appreciates
Oh, yeah.
advice too. Like I feel like they're gonna
This
like it.
it's been awesome. But thank you so much for joining us and giving us all the knowledge that you could give us in an hour and 13 minutes. Do us a favor. So this is like a nice plug for yourself. Where can people find you on social media?
So social media, I mean, really, I'm trying to not be as addicted to it, but I still watch my really Instagram is the one thing I've kind of whittled it down to. I use Facebook just for the marketplace aspect, just about strictly only. But it's Duck Dog Vet there on Instagram. Of course, we've got our clinic stuff as well. For at Animal Clinic of Oxford, I think. Don't get me wrong. It's Animal Clinic of Oxford. But also not only through Instagram, but we're always open to individuals that have questions, especially when it comes down to a lot of people reach out to us in our clinic to get some input on when they have their OFAs done for their hips and elbows. If they come back as non-passing, or if they're the vet that took them or is just questionable about sending them in because they see X, Y, or Z. We're always open to having y'all shoot them over and kind of evaluate them and putting our kind of 2 cents on if it's worth reshooting them or even sending them in and all that kind of stuff. Always open to help and answer questions and educate.
That's awesome. That's actually really good to know.
Mhm.
And I feel like you may have gotten pretty lucky with being able to choose Duck Dog Vet as like your handle.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? I'm sure there's other people that wanted that, but you were the first one to get it.
It worked out pretty good. So the original um, Instagram stuff, it was called Fly Fishing Vet, with how much me and my wife like to fly fish.
Oh, nice.
But as soon as I got out of the Army, I realized that my career is gonna be pretty heavy working dog focused. I knew I needed to switch over to something that was kind of dog related, probably.
Yeah.
But but our clinic, with our clinic, we've got. I'm saying we're not afraid to do a lot of things that other clinics are nervous to do, and so we're known across the entire, I'm going to say, eastern half of the U.S. a lot for our reproductive capabilities. The last couple of years, I've brought in a real heavy orthopedic aspect to our clinic, and I just recently finished up certified canine rehab therapist. Sorry, I said that wrong. Therapist certification type stuff to bring in a rehab component to our clinic as well, just so that if it's post orthopedic surgery, whether if it's a broken leg or ACL or whatever it is, or just some of these pulls and strains and tears and all this kind of stuff coming in and really bringing from the human component. We use it a lot, physical therapy and occupational therapy, to manage a lot of these injuries and kind of bring that same component into the working dog aspect and pain management aspect of our clinic.
Love that.
You ever think about doing a satellite like location in Pittsburgh?
It'd be hard to compete with the Penn Working Dog program. I think they're pretty amazing up there in what they do. So,
all right, I tried.
Yeah.
I wish you were closer, but
Great.
who knows if things ever go south? I guess no pun intended there. Maybe we'll have to venture our way down there and get your input on some things.
Yeah.
But like I said, Doctor Matt. That's what I'm going to call you.
You're mad.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Best of luck with everything you got going on, whether that's hunting, hunt tests, just being a vet in general. So yeah, thank you so much, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah.
Y'all are very welcome. It was real good sitting down and talking with y'all. It was fun.
Awesome.